Operation Epic Fury.
The Pentagon just made a massive military move, and they didn't want to tell you about it. Right now, as I speak, over 2,000 United States Marines are being redirected from the Pacific to the Middle East. The USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group has been ordered to steam towards the Strait of Hormuz as Iran escalates its attack on commercial shipping. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth approved this deployment, but here's the question the mainstream media won't ask. Why wasn't this announced at the Pentagon briefing just like a couple hours ago? What's really happening in those waters, and why does the regime in Tehran think they can hold the world's oil supply hostage? So let me tell you what this means for you and your family. The Strait of Hormuz isn't some faraway waterway that doesn't affect your life. 20% of the world's oil passes through that narrow choke point every single day. And when Iran lays mines and threatens commercial vessels, they're threatening your gas prices, your heating bill, and the cost of everything you buy at the grocery store. This is economic warfare against the American people. But it goes even deeper than our wallet. Our military personnel, our sons and daughters in uniform, are now being positioned for potential combat operations. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, normally stationed in Japan protecting us from China, is now racing towards the Persian Gulf. And that means we're stretching our forces thin while multiple adversaries watch and calculate. President Trump understands that weakness invites aggression, and he's responding with strength. But make no mistake, the regime in Tehran is testing American resolve, and they're about to find out what happens when you threaten the United States of America. And speaking of national security, there's a critical vulnerability that Washington has been ignoring for far too long. We are tracking a developing story out of Washington, one the legacy media does not want you to see. As Iran destabilizes the Middle East, the federal government just made a move that could reshape America's security posture. Here's the truth. Our nuclear subs, our warheads, and our next-generation power grid, all of it depends on uranium. And we import almost every single pound of it. It's not about energy independence, it's about survival. Because a nation that can't power its own military does not remain a superpower for too long. That's why Atomic Minerals, trading as ATMMF in the US and ATOM in Canada, is positioned as the center of America's uranium future. As our military deploys to protect global shipping lanes, smart investors are looking at the companies securing our domestic energy supply. Now let's get back to what the Pentagon doesn't want you asking questions about. So here's what really has me fired up about this story. Like Steve Bannon, absolutely right. The Pentagon held a briefing just hours before this deployment was announced, and they said nothing, zero, zilch, nada. And Secretary Hegseth gave what Bannon called a toss-away comment about the Strait of Hormuz. Why the secrecy? Why wasn't this put before the American people so we can hear the reasoning and ask tough questions? This is a major escalation. We're not just talking about naval escorts, we're talking about targeting Iran's mine-laying operations, their naval bases, and their missile depots, all while putting American troops on the ground. Let's get into it. From the Visioner, we have breaking: the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit with about 2,200 Marines aboard the U.S. Navy amphibious ships has been ordered to the Middle East, according to ABC News, citing two U.S. officials. Let's see. Yeah, it's a pretty cool tech. I mean, I say the military's always got some of the coolest hardware, coolest technology out there. I mean, that'd be a fun boat ride to go out there and play around with. But that's what the Marines have when they go to land on beaches. As our Marines advance into the fray, the next wave has just completed intense preparations. See how the Iwo Jima group is ready to jump into action. We have a message from the United States Navy saying the two Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group and embarked 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations capable successfully completed composite training unit exercise. Tex is a culmination of months of intense training in ARGMU teams. Let's see. I can tell you what, those Marines want to get out there and go do some stuff. They get trained for one reason, and that is to bring our enemies to their knees. With training complete, questions arise. Why wasn't this escalation transparently addressed to the Americans at the Pentagon briefing? And we have Steve Bannon going absolutely bonkers. Let's see here. So according to Bannon, sending an amphibious ready group with 5,000 Marines toward Hormuz is a major escalation. The move should have been announced at the Pentagon briefing so the public can hear the reasoning and ask questions. Let's see what Steve has to say.
Had a Pentagon briefing a couple hours ago. This was clearly in the works. I think that would have been best to put forward to the American people because this is a major escalation. First off, you're signaling with the heaviest kinetic activity today, air supremacy, the ability to pick targets at will and continue to destroy the regime. And as Neil said, also go to look like some of their redoubts in the mountains. Pete's kind of, it wasn't glib, but it was kind of a toss away about the Straits of Hormuz to say that you're just not going to go with naval forces to ask as escorts, which is still a couple of weeks away. The reason for that, as I said, my brother was part of the tanker war in 87 and 88. I was there earlier, but those days was much simpler. It was hard, but much simpler back then because you just had the difficulty of the radars working and be able to track. Now you have drones, which puts the combatants at exposure. It's just not simply putting a combatant on a tanker and, oh, we got a destroyer on a tanker, it's going to be fine. It's much more complicated than that today. But this is, you're right, this sends a signal to Iran, but it also sends a signal to the American people. This is a major escalation. Now you're talking about 5,000 Marines in the area. We already have Marines obviously stationed and naval personnel and Army in these bases throughout, but you send an amphibious ready group, and specifically in the Wall Street Journal, they have 3 U.S. officials saying it is for potential activity around the Straits of Hormuz. That's you're all of a sudden that's an escalation. I think that would have been best to fully put that out at a morning briefing where you can actually answer some questions about it. Anyway, we're going to go to commercial break. Stick around. We're also going to the White House. We got Neil McCabe.
So I think we trust Pete, the Secretary of War and the Pentagon. If they think that 5,000 Marines are needed, then they're needed. And I think that they are going to go in and control some of the small rockets and artillery to make sure that the oil and the trade goes back through the Strait of Hormuz. And honestly, if General Kane, I trust him as the Joint Chairman of Staff for the Department of Defense. If he says something is needed, I'm going to believe him because that guy defeated ISIS in weeks when everybody else said it would take years. And he's the guy that pulled off the Maduro capture, whatever you want to call it. So criticism mounts, and with the stakes rising in Hormuz, the strategic deployment of Marines is explored further by the Strategic Affairs. So breaking, Israel and Iran, U.S. deploys 2,200 Marines and amphibious warships from Japan to the Middle East. The United States is deploying the Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group from Japan to the Middle East. It carries approximately 2,200 Marines from the 31st Expeditionary Unit. And those guys always look geared out for war. They're doing some incredibly good things. So with Iran's aggressive moves in Hormuz, the Pentagon's swift response sends a loud message. Here, Secretary Hegseth on why this decision was vital. So from the open source intel, the Pentagon is moving a Marine Expeditionary Units to the Middle East, and Pete Hegseth has something to say about it. So the Pentagon is moving. We got more and more newspaper clippings. It looks like everybody wants to get out there and get things done. As tensions rise, USS Tripoli heads to the troubled waters. TADVAM News reveals America's next strategic military maneuver. All right, we've got another carrier group, amphibious group, all sorts of military assets going over there to really knock things out of the park. And all the things that we could actually see are happening. There's millions of things happening behind the scenes that we have no idea what's going on. And there's not a lot of media coming out of it because Iran's kind of blacked out on the internet side right now. From ship deployments to targeting threats, General Dan Kane outlines the priorities in securing commercial passage. His briefing aims to counter Iran's ongoing instability in the Strait of Hormuz. And again, when Trump asked in 2017 or 2016, let's get rid of ISIS, what do we need to do this? And all the generals like, oh, sir, that'll take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And Kane's like, hey, I could do it in a few weeks. He's like, I like this guy, let's do it. And then he put him in charge, executed. ISIS was gone a couple weeks later. They went from the major fighting force terrorizing the Middle East to nothing. And now that Trump's back in office and he's got Raising Kane as the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, he's out there doing whatever he needs to do to make sure our troops execute the jobs that they are given. Let's see.
make something clear. The only thing preventing commercial traffic and flow through the straits right now, which there is some through the straits, is Iran. They are the belligerents here holding the straits closed, although there is some traffic moving through there. We've made it a priority to target Iran's mine-laying enterprise, their mine layers, the naval bases and depots, in addition to the missiles that could influence the straits.
And we have the best military in the world that's out there cleaning those mines. And just a couple of years ago, they decommissioned the mine-sweeping boats. They brought it back in. They're all overseas right now doing their jobs. Even though they were decommissioned, they got recommissioned real quick, saying, hey, this was a bad decision by the Biden administration. Let's go back out there and make things happen. So let me tell you what this really means. General Dan Kane said it plain as day. Iran is the belligerent here. They are holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage. They're laying mines and they're threatening missiles. And President Trump's Pentagon is responding exactly the way a strong America should. We're targeting their mine-laying enterprise, their naval infrastructure, their ability to wage economic terror on the world. This isn't the weakness we saw under the previous administration. This is American strength on full display. The Ayatollahs thought they could test Donald Trump. Well, guess what? They were wrong. 2,000 Marines are on their way, and that's the message to Tehran is crystal clear. You would not hold the global economy hostage, not on our watch. And Patriots, this is exactly what we do and why we do it here at the Next News Network. The mainstream media buried the story. The Pentagon tried to slide it past without a briefing. But you deserve to know when American forces are being deployed into harm's way. You deserve transparency from your government, and you deserve the truth about what Iran is doing in those waters. Share this video right now. Get it out to everybody you know. The American people need to understand what we are projecting strength again. And our enemies, they're taking notice. So drop a comment and tell me, do you support the President Trump sending Marines to confront Iran in the Straits of Hormuz? Let us know, yes or no. And I want to hear from you guys. And if you want to show your patriotic pride, check out the Next News merch shop at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. We've got gear that lets the world know exactly where you stand. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay free, and God bless.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.